All right, everyone. It's at 9:30, so let's get started. Welcome to the PLA 2026 Annual Meeting. So my name is Michael. I'm the current president. We have a packed agenda with all the copies of. We have John Dallinoff here, who's the Executive Director of the Wakefield Watersheds Alliance, as our guest speaker. But first, I'd like to thank all of our members. Without your generosity, we wouldn't be able to do any of the work that we're going to talk about today. And from there, I'd like to thank all of our volunteers, everybody who's volunteered both their time and efforts over the past year. A big thank you to all of my fellow board members that will all work with us here behind the scenes. We have a number of former board members here in the audience with us as well. I'd like to thank the towns of Effingham and Wakefield who provide financial support for the Lake Coast program through various state basic funds. A special thanks to the Gardella family who graciously contributed their time and effort for our annual breakfast, which made a comeback this year, and they allowed us to do that at their property near the farm. That was widely popular. We had over 150 people there, and we raised over $900 for the play. And last but certainly not least, a huge thank you to Parsonsfield for allowing us to use this space today. So in the past year, we saw a large number of achievements. We had, of course, continuing support of our Lake Coast program. We completed some additional planting along 453 for erosion prevention. Those plans. We kept the beach clean. There was a number of beach cleanups throughout the year. Our loon monitoring program has been successful. We have the weed watch program, of course. We do our regular water testing, regular monitoring of the water levels, maintaining the dam, and managing the egress water flow in the lake. We've also made a lot of progress today, which we're going to hear about from John, towards the watershed survey results from the watershed survey that we did last year and our upcoming septic survey. And of course, we just educate members and others through our social media outreach. And just to circle back to volunteering, like I said, none of this would be possible without help from not only the members of the board, but everybody that helps out. And any amount that you can get involved, no matter how small, is a huge help for us. So let's have a quick round of applause for everyone who's helped make the PLA a success for the past year. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to John.
Morning, everybody. I'm going to stand awkwardly in the corner over here. I apologize that it's not front and center, but I just want to make sure I can refer to my notes. So I know I can't see you like behind the poles. Sorry about that. If you have any questions, just stick your head over in favor. So I am here to talk about the results of the watershed survey, but I am going to just give a general update, refresher on what we do. So, as Brian mentioned, my name is John Dallinoff. I'm the Executive Director of the Wakefield Watersheds Alliance. We're a local nonprofit that's dedicated to helping communities in Wakefield and Acton protect the water quality of the lakes and rivers and streams in these communities. The lakes are sort of the main economic, recreational, environmental driver of this region, so it's very important to kind of keep that connection between the people and the towns and the water quality connected. So we work with 9 lakes, including Province Lake, to do this kind of watershed planning work, water quality work, education, and outreach. For those of you that know me already, this is actually I just started my 8th year working for the organization, which is terrifying to me. It probably feels like a blink of an eye for you guys too. I kind of assumed it would just pause at 5, like forever, but it's starting to creep up to like double digits now, which is interesting. I still have the job, and just a couple of quick updates for the organization. Our staff has grown in recent years. We have 4 year-round staff now, 2 full-time and 2 part-time, including myself. With a couple of private grants from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, we're able to hire an outreach coordinator, start a couple additional programs. We're doing cost share programs for installing vegetative buffers on shorelines for homeowners, as well as the septic system grants that we've done over the years. And as I mentioned, we have a new full-time, well, I didn't mention this yet. We have had a program coordinator for many years, but Our previous coordinator, James Shemansky, left the organization last year after working there for 7 years. He was on the YCC crew and was the crew leader and then became program coordinator. And we have a new program coordinator this year named Michael Happett. So he might be speaking here in the future. He's been making the rounds as well, introducing himself, and he's doing a great job. He graduated from UVM just last year. So great addition to the organization there. One of the things that we do in the wintertime, in addition to all of this work, is we do school programs with the Wakefield and Acton middle schools. We've been doing that for over 10 years, and last year we brought back a program called Sea Perch, which is where we cooperate with the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, and the kids in the 8th grade classrooms get to build these like aquatic rovers in groups, and they get to test them out at UNH and tour the ocean engineering lab. So it's this really high impact like capstone for the middle schoolers that we did in Wakefield this year. We're hoping to bring that back into Acton too. So we're doing a lot of stuff in the community with like I said, the middle schools and with the lakes in the summertime. We're a year-round organization doing this kind of work. Lastly, I just want to say thank you to the board and to the organization for donating to our organization again this year. The Lake Associations do support us every year, and you guys have been supporting us almost since the beginning. So thank you again for your 2026 contribution. And many of you are individual donors as well. So thank you for continuing to support us, because like I said, we're a nonprofit, and that's how we stay in business. We don't usually charge for most of the stuff that we do. We just rely on grants and donations. So getting into the main reason that I'm here. So in 2024, the PLA contracted AWA to help renew the watershed survey. So I'm going to explain that, but I want to just give a little bit of backstory first. So AWA worked with the Province Lake Association long ago, or many years ago, to develop the Province Lake Watershed Management Plan, which is a very elaborate and scientific document that sort of identifies water quality issues, establishes goals, and then identifies a lot of ways you can achieve those watershed goals over a 10+ year period. And that plan was made in 2015, which means it's getting a little old at this point. Okay, it's still relevant, but it's time to update certain things in it. So one element of that is the watershed survey. So what the watershed survey is essentially we recruit volunteers from the community and get technical leaders to survey the shoreline and the tributaries to identify erosion sources. So it's not fully exhaustive. It doesn't include, like we discussed, the septic system analysis. It doesn't include monitoring inflows from culverts and things like that. It's solely to identify erosion, because sediment from erosion getting into the lake brings phosphorus, which is the primary, essentially, nutrient that cyanobacteria and algae need to thrive. So that's sort of the thing we're trying to prevent from getting into the lake. So just a quick outline here. Actually, I think I have a little. Okay, I don't have a laser, but I've got to make a change in my slides. So, hold on. Gotta turn it on. Maybe I do have a laser. I was saving the battery. Hey, okay, cool. So, yeah, pretty slick, right? My wife let me that this morning. So just a little bit, I'm trying to just get a little backstory into the actual data. So for those of you that aren't aware, maybe I've talked about watersheds and things like that. Watershed is the area around a lake where any water that hits the ground from a rainstorm will ultimately flow into the lake. So we don't just care about shoreline, impact. We care about anything that happens in the watershed. It's going to get into these rivers. Even if it lands on the ground, if it doesn't have anywhere to soak into the ground, eventually it gets into the lake. Things like large wetland areas or natural filters. So these are good things for preventing pollution in the lake. But things like development, roads, impervious areas and cleared areas, if not managed properly, can provide pollution to the lake, and that includes, shorelines as well. Anybody know why this is the only spot that isn't in our watershed area? Any guesses? Outflow. Correct, because this is the outflow of the lake, the South River, so this water is flowing away from the lake, not into. So every lake has one little point where the outflow is, and the rest is landwards flowing into the lake. And just for reference, you probably can't see these numbers up here, but they note that the lake is just shy of 1,000 acres in the area, and the wetland of the watershed area is just shy of 4,000 acres. So The land area itself is 4 times the size of the lake, so that just gives you some scope for why we are concerned with what happens at the watershed, not just on the lake. Don't let your eyes bug out too much with all these numbers. This is the densest slide I'm going to show you, but this is just some snippets from the original watershed plan, and I just wanted to include this to give a sense of what we thought in 2015 when we started this whole process. So we identified primary sources of pollution of phosphorus, things like septic systems. These are the sources. This means like shoreline erosion, camp roads, and then there were considerations for land conservation to prevent future erosion, and these are just estimates for phosphorus loading by pound getting into the lake. You also might be thinking, oh, pounds, that doesn't sound like that much, but phosphorus is a very small nutrient, and even 1 pound of that is an immense amount and can affect the ecology of the lake. So at this time, it was calculated, we hired, I believe we worked with FB Environmental, so before I started, they're an environmental consultant firm located in Portland, Maine. They calculated that approximately 1,000 pounds of phosphorus gets into the lake every year. Some of that is natural, but some of it is extra from these sources, septic systems, road erosion, things like that. So the goal was to reduce that by 25% down to approximately 750 pounds per year. That would be a level that we start to see reduced cyanobacteria blooms. So I'm just putting that into your head. All of this is to say that the big goal, and Nisa Marks brought this up 2 years ago when you guys had her as a special guest, and just reiterating it, so because you haven't heard it in 2 years. The big pie in the sky goal was to reduce the amount of phosphorus getting into the lake by 250 pounds, which equates to X number of tons of sediment essentially getting into the lake. And the estimated cost was just shy of $700,000 over 10 years, and you'll see in a little bit that we're actually pretty close to that number in terms of the amount of grant dollars that we spent. So just keep the 250 number in mind, because that's sort of the target that we're looking for. So as part of the watershed plan, like I mentioned, we do a watershed survey, and the plan never has to be updated, but they recommend updating the survey every 10 years to see if there's new erosion sources, what's already been addressed, things like that. So it was originally done in 2015. Like I said, we started going in 2025 to renew that. So this was a postcard that we sent out to everybody in the community. Hopefully everybody got it. Residents had the option to opt out of the watershed survey. They didn't want folks assessing their property. It's not like regulatory. They don't report anything. It's just a tool for the community to identify the stuff, but some folks aren't comfortable with it. I think we had like 3 or 4 people opt out. It's usually a pretty small number. And then what we do is this is that same watershed area highlighted in yellow, and we break it into 7 sectors, and we ask volunteers from each sector that live on the shoreline to pair up with a regional, water quality expert like myself and my staff from DES, the main UP, etc., to walk their section of the shoreline and use a data collection app to identify erosion, take pictures, and document the entire watershed for erosion. So that's what we did. Let's see. So this was my group. Just going to show a couple pictures from the day. So we got out on a kind of a rainy day. This was my watershed group walking the shoreline here. This is over on Bonnie Road at the beautiful live staking project we did a couple years ago. It doesn't look too pretty in April, but it's really flourishing now. If anyone ever drives by there, a lot of vegetation is coming in. That was a really successful project. This is my friend Gloria and John Samuelson, who looks cheery as a peach till now every day. And this is my wife, Crystal, who helped out as well. She worked for New Hampshire Lakes for 10 years, so she's in similar field to me. Found a turtle in the road. This is the picture she said I could share, but this is the one I wanted to share because the sheer joy of finding a turtle in the road. So I put both of them in. And we found some cool stuff too. I don't know what the skull is from, but we found a very curious skull in the woods. So not erosion related, just kind of cool when you're into nature stuff. So similar to the breakfast that Ryan mentioned, the folks at another farm, Lisa Gardella. Is Lisa here today? She's here. No. They generously donated the space for us to eat in the morning, and they provided breakfast and lunch for the event. So these are our main DEP volunteers that came out to help out, which was generous of them because Maine province like it's only a tiny little sliver of it is in Maine. So usually they don't come out, but they wanted to come and see what was going on the Maine side, so they volunteered for those sectors. And then that's James, my previous program coordinator, who helped out as well. We had volunteers. You can recognize your current leadership there, Ryan Rule, previous leader, Jen Aiken, and many other volunteers as well. You can see that everybody was very eager to leave the warmth of the shed. We're dressed for like winter, and it was literally late April, so it was a chilly day, but it's still beautiful on the lake. You know, I think when it's a rainy day, there's still a level of beauty that can be found here on the lake, obviously. So, okay. That's how the watershed survey went. There were more pictures, but I figured you'd get into the data a little bit. So once the data is all collected, I developed a watershed report, and I actually printed it out. I provided digital versions to the Lake Association, but there's a printed version here if anyone wants to take a peek at it today. A lot of it is just educational stuff and layout of sort of what the state of the watershed is, but in the appendix, I do actually do like a data analysis and include a spreadsheet of all the erosion that was found and map it out using GIS software. So this is all the erosion sites that were found on the lake. And we kind of prioritize them by high, medium, and low priority, and that they're not perfectly correlated with water quality impact. It's sort of water quality impact paired with like cost and technical level to install and design, sort of feasibility of a project, so it gets sort of prioritized that way. And looking at this, you know, it might look a little overwhelming, but the reality is that, you know, the nature of this is that the medium and low priority areas, there is erosion there, but it's not terrible. And a kind of jargony term that we use in this water quality field is non-point source pollution, and it's the opposite of point source pollution. So back in the day, you had like a factory or some large organization or source or septic treatment center polluting a water body who held that point source pollution. These days, a lot of those have been addressed, and now we deal with non-point source, which means many, many small sources of pollution. So no one of these points is having outsized impact or like it's polluting the lake. It's just that there's a lot of people on the lake and a lot smaller problems. And that's why it's sort of a community effort to look at this and see what we can address. And what we do is we send out a letter to every single person with some of the pictures included, obviously. Everyone that had erosion on their property, we send them that letter. And our hope is that the medium and low priority sites, and people get that letter and they see it, they'll either just address it themselves with the recommendations that get included in the letter, or they'll call PLA or they'll call AWA for help, and we can use our YCC crew and help them address it. So a lot of those ones, hopefully they get addressed naturally over that 10-year period. And then the red ones are the ones that we sort of look at as organizations and say like, hey, these highest priority, highest impact spots, can we work together to find funding, either through grants that we apply for or community fundraising, to address these high priority sites and sort of make it like a very visual, like high impact project for the community to be inspired by. So that's kind of what we hope for when we develop these maps. So like I mentioned, if erosion is found on your property, you get a letter. I do like to reiterate that like this isn't supposed to be like a blame game or pointing fingers. It really is meant to be an outreach tool to educate the community. Some folks, as I mentioned this morning, some folks just come up here for the weekend, don't think about water quality every day. And so getting this letter hopefully is just a friendly reminder that, you know, there are people in the community that are thinking about this, and we'd love to like bring you into the fold and, you know, create a culture of addressing erosion on people's properties. So they get this letter, and then in the back they actually get a breakdown from the spreadsheet of, you know, the site number that we gave the erosion, where it was found, and then the recommendations down here for the types of stormwater erosion control practices that can get put in, and then if there's any notes, they get that too. So they sort of get this. There's not a whole lot you can do with this, except to hopefully, if it's a simple fix, you know, take a look at it and solve it yourself. But the hope is that they'll maybe call us and be like, what the heck is this letter? What am I supposed to do? And then I can do a site visit and explain the whole process to them and do like a more in-depth site design for them. And that's sort of how we pick away at these over the years. The good news is that a lot of this is already happening. I don't want to spoil John's presentation. He's going to be talking about this in a minute. But this is the Province Lake Beach, and just to back up for a second, again, that's Route 153. Most of you are familiar with it. It's about 0.8 miles of beach shoreline on Province Lake, and that, so I walked part of this in my sector, and we've got a couple of little red points right here. We've got this red point right here. The main DEP folks walked this section, and they basically put one red point to indicate like this entire beach is eroded. So it's not like a red line right here. They just kind of, picked a couple of spots to represent the erosion level on the shoreline there. So that definitely is one of the high priority sites for addressing erosion, which we've been doing over the years. And last year, or 2 years ago, the PLA, I think kind of spearheaded by you, Joan, applied for a grant independently of AWA. We helped with the design and reviewed the grant, but it was really PLA's, prerogative to apply to this fund through the state of New Hampshire called the Cyanobacteria Mitigation Fund, which is a one-time funded program to address cyanobacteria in the community in the state for projects that were ready to go, basically. So they got funding to do 600 feet of vegetated buffer and revegetation of the shoreline on Province Lake Beach. So this is we sent our YCC crew out for one day to help the volunteers, and there were many volunteers from the community, probably a few of which are in this room. We planted 500 plants, some crazy number over 2 years. Over both years? Oh, okay. I was doubling it. And it was many, many yards of mulch, and it encompassed 600 feet of the shoreline, which is a lot, which is a good stretch of the 4,600 total feet. They obviously brought in some machinery to get it over the guardrail, and then our crew was spreading the mulch. And now, again, I really am spoiling your talk later, I apologize, but I was too excited to share these pictures. This is what it's looking like now. And this is pretty impressive. So our crew has been spot treating stuff like this over the years, but this is a large stretch of the beach, and those plants could grow in over time. And that erosion control mulch is very thick mulch that stops the storm water from running straight into the lake, allows it to infiltrate into the sand, sand is usually very well draining, but if it has velocity, it runs right through and drags it down into the lake. So doing this, putting that mulch down, gives the plants time to establish and create a vegetated area for the lake. And this is not an insignificant project. Like I mentioned, it was 600 feet between 2025 and 2026. And the models that we use to calculate phosphorus reductions from our projects estimate that this will prevent 11 pounds of phosphorus from getting into the lake every year. And that goes towards our 250 goal that I mentioned earlier on. I'll give some totals in a minute, but that's a pretty significantly sized phosphorus reduction for one project. In referencing the watershed management plan, I was reviewing that ahead of this presentation, and I confirmed that in 2015, when we originally did the watershed survey, FB Environmental calculated that the beach alone was contributing about 85 pounds of phosphorus into the lake every year. So a pretty significant source, and it makes sense because it's almost a mile of shoreline. It's relatively exposed, or less at the time. Starting in 2025, before you guys did that beach work, it had gotten down to 69 pounds per year. So our various projects, our Beach Conservation Corps projects over the years, we've gotten about a 16-pound reduction from that. But then just in the last 2 years, with those 11-pound project, it's down to 58. So that still is a big number. There's still a lot of phosphorus getting into the lake. These are estimates based on modeling, so they're not perfect, but this is the best tool that we have for calculating this kind of stuff. Still a pretty big number of phosphorus getting into the lake off the shoreline, but it's almost 30 pounds less every year from when we first did. So even though it's a slow process, even though we see balloons a lot, work is getting done and we're getting closer to our goal. And I think, not to jinx anything, but we've been pretty good this year, right? There was one balloon early in the season. No, not even early spring? Okay. Right, my 7 years are getting muddy together. So that's, we can't directly, correlate a project with no blooms. Nature is complicated, but in general, doing this work is going to lead to reduced cyanobacteria blooms over time. And I do like to remind everyone that this is sort of, these systems take a long time to change because you think about it like a really cold cement floor, and the sun comes out and it stays cool for many, many hours, but then once it gets hot, it can take days to cool off again, because the system has built up energy. And that's kind of the same with phosphorus. You had this sort of unchecked pollution happening for maybe decades and decades. maybe 60, 70 years, and then we started addressing it only in 2015. So it wouldn't be shocking that only 11 years later we're still seeing those. But we should expect those to slow down over time if we kind of stay diligent and do projects like this. So the slides are a little boring to look at, but I just wanted to provide some reference to the work that's been done. I did share this slide in 2024, but it's slightly updated. So these are all the grant projects that we collaborate with you guys to apply for over the years. Those are the approximate costs, $160,000, $200,000. These are grants from State of New Hampshire, PES. The cyanobacteria project, that was about $10,000, right, John? A little shy of that. I rounded up, I think. Okay. So total spent on fixing the lakes in 2015 is about $635,000, which is pretty close to that 670. I think that was in the watershed plan at the beginning. So that's a pretty good estimate you guys came up with these 10 years ago. Not too far off. And everything added up together from these projects, including the work that was just done, leads to 160 pounds of phosphorus prevented from getting into the lake every year, which is 64% of that 250. So we're over halfway. That's a pretty impressive reach that we've made on this. There's more to do. Even if we were somehow able to revegetate the entire beach of Providence Lake, for example, there's still 58 pounds in there, so that wouldn't get us all the way. But there's other projects we can do in the watershed, and septic systems that can be replaced, and our youth crew will keep doing projects over the years to keep sort of getting closer and closer to that goal. So this is pretty good work that's happened in recent years. So getting back to what we can do next, what the next steps are, this was the map that I mentioned earlier, and this is the graph, or this is the chart that's in the appendix. So we sort of prioritize out these highest priority projects, assume their cost estimates and what it would take to get the work done. Obviously, the beach is a high priority. You can see other red dots. This is that stretch of Bonning Road where the erosion has made it worse, so it's almost vertical right there. So that's a problem. You can see that a lot of those are actually medium priority, a couple high priority dots in there. That's a very complicated area to try to address just because so much erosion has already occurred over the years, as many of you know. And there's also a big stretch here on Bonning Road close to the Effingham side where some grant projects have been done in years past, but they sort of disappeared or didn't get properly maintained. So that's an area that definitely could and should be addressed in the future. The toughest thing about doing work like this is that we can make all of our very calculated, fancy prioritization lists, but the vast majority of land around any lake is private property. So really what it comes down to is not what's the highest priority project, it's who's willing to work with us, who's willing to make changes on their property, who's willing to cooperate and make this a community effort. So that's why I do make this, because it's a good process and it's good to know for our own sake. But really it's a community tool to try to see who's willing to help out. And the stuff that we can do as organizations is talk to property owners, but also towns. This is a town road in here, so can we collaborate with the town of Effingham, their Department of Public Works, to do more projects on the lake, and work with the town of Wakefield to do stuff in this area. There's a lot of options, and those things are always changing. Part of our staff growing, we just finished our strategic planning process for this year. I'll communicate with the towns more and discuss ordinances and collaborate on projects on town-owned properties. So there is a lot of folks for doing stuff like this in the future, and otherwise it's just keeping at it, and making sure that as an organization you're promoting the concept of water quality and what you can do on your own property to protect the lake. So in terms of tangible next steps, I would ask you guys as an organization to encourage everyone who received a letter to address erosion on their property, either by fixing it themselves, hiring a professional landscaper, or they can call ALWA and we can do a design for free, and we can bring our youth crew over for free and help address that stormwater. For the low and medium priority projects, for higher priority projects, like those town roads and Route 123 Beach and other red dots, like I mentioned, we can continue to collaborate and apply for grants. The public funding got a little delayed this year because of the government shutdown, but it was refunded, so those funds will come back again. probably 2027 and 8 at this point, that they will be there. And I've been finding a lot of private funding sources too, from charitable foundation and other private foundations. So we can, keep seeking funding opportunities to do these higher impact projects. Communicate with the municipalities, which is something I'm dedicated to doing more of. And then finally, this is a smaller piece, but still an important piece. This is in the watershed management plan. Being more aware of what's happening in town government and supporting local ordinances that regulate septic system pumping and things like that in the shoreline zone. Land conservation, that's less common, but it's good to jump on that as a community when it's an option. We actually just helped Level Lake conserve 134 acres right in the watershed across from the lake, which it doesn't necessarily prevent current issues, but it prevents future issues. So like an area that otherwise may have been developed with high impact development or medium density development will now be protected as forest, and forest is generally better at retaining stormwater. So it's good to keep some of the watershed forested. And when they did the watershed plan for Providence Lake originally, they actually did a build-out analysis and calculated the maximum number of houses that could possibly get built in the watershed and what that phosphorus impact would have, which is why they included land conservation in there as an effort. Again, less common, and I will say that there has been discussion in Wakefield about a septic system ordinance. The town government isn't that interested in it yet, but some folks have proposed it as an option, and there are actually dozens of towns in New Hampshire that have adopted septic system ordinances for the shoreline zone to ensure that those get pumped regularly and that they get repaired upon purchase and things like that. So there's a lot of little things that we can do to sort of keep the wheels turning, keep this in the forefront of everyone's mind, and get closer to that goal of 250 pounds of phosphorus reduction. Personally, I feel very hard about the fact that there haven't been any sign of losses here, even though there's a million reasons that could be. Can't necessarily take credit for it, but it is still great that you guys got to swim in the lake all summer.
I have a question. I think it's great for everybody here to be hearing this, but the people that aren't here, is it possible to have this in a format where we can put it on the website? So people, personally, I'm all in for everything you're saying. There's so many people that just that may have gotten their survey results and either they forgot or maybe they don't care. And I think it would be important for them to see this since I'm sure most of them are here.
Yep. Follow up. I'll answer that in a second.
Yeah, along that line, it seems like there's an incredible amount of misinformation on the internet.
Yeah.
People who claim to be experts as to what the problem is. And then I get a lot of questions. People stating, well, why doesn't anybody do anything about it? And I spend a lot of time, trying to direct them to the webpage or explaining what's going on. And a lot of people are not members.
Right.
So they don't get the information. So I think it's this, we said maybe if there was a one-page flyer that went in the mail to them. This is what we're doing. This is what we've already accomplished. And we're making progress. And quit pumping out a lot of information.
Yeah, you cut right to the core of the problem, which is the outreach element, which is why that piece is often overlooked and it's super important. It's not uncommon for any organization like yours, and mine included, to only reach about 25% of their potential constituent base. It's just across the board, nationally, it's a nonprofit phenomenon that you're like, if you are reaching 25% of your potential constituent base, you're doing a good job, which is not good enough, right? It's just that's that we can often do. So yeah, I think like a flyer going out, any outreach we can do, that's part of why I wanted to hire an outreach coordinator. So I actually have someone whose full-time job it is to just tell the world what we're doing. Because often we're so busy doing the work that we don't have time to talk about it and tell people about it. But yeah, it's just to Mary's point too, I think any outreach we can do is important.
And when I mentioned earlier that, it's great that we're getting involved, this is an area where you can all get involved, make sure your neighbors know about the PLA and know all this information, direct them to the right place. And, if you see misinformation on the internet, be kind in response, but, direct them to the appropriate place and then try to correct people.
Yes. And the reality is, so like we do this work, like I said, in the whole region. You guys are our direct connection to the community, and we do have some direct relationships with community members, but you guys are sort of our local source. Like you mentioned that breakfast, you said you had 150 people come.
Yeah.
The more than I got here. Like you guys talked about we had our annual meeting, we had a 20-year anniversary last year, and I was stoked that we had 40 people come. So the fact that you got 150 people to come is amazing. You have deep reach with the community, and it's sort of like the word can be spread for you guys too. Absolutely.
Just to follow up on the breakfast, it was so successful this year. For those of you that don't know, we did breakfast for 6 years consecutive, 4 or 5 years ago, and then we stopped for reasons. But starting up, we did not know how many were coming this year.
Yeah.
We were maybe 100, we ended up with 150. It was so successful, we're doing it again next year. And it will be at the same venue, I think it's July 5th again. It's July 4th, okay, in the morning, but that'll all get announced, but it was very successful.
Yeah, which is wonderful. So to some extent, I rely on my relationship with the Lake Association to help spread the word, but yeah, we're trying to get the word out as much as possible. Then I think more follow-up and more outreach would be very, very useful. And the truth is, you never are going to reach every single person. Yeah, there are people that don't pay attention, people that hear it, but it's not a priority, and then unfortunately, there's always a handful of people that hear it and just couldn't be bothered. We get the full spectrum, and we have this many people in one shared space, so it's always going to be the people who care the most fighting to drag everybody else along, but that's what we do. All right, that's all I had for this section. I have a couple more updates to provide, but are there any more questions on the watershed survey itself? Yes.
I just noticed that my house is a little.
Oh, really?
And I did not knowing you received a letter, so I wonder if you could resend the letter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
My name is, Paula Ewing, INGLEE.
Okay. Yes,
I'm one of those people you're talking about.
Yeah, I just think, something like this, yeah, so we have 150 people at breakfast, but when you offer something, who wants to come here and do that?
Right.
But if we did something like this at breakfast, where 150 people could, even if we have 25% of them, it's so much more effective than, not that this isn't effective, don't get me wrong, but these are people that care. And that might be 25% of those people that don't care, that maybe might start caring.
Yeah, and I can speak at more events too, like that 4th of July, No, but I agree. I think that's important. And yeah, I'll make sure that we have the proper mailing address for you, because it's tough to get the mailing list and the addresses aren't always up to date. So that's another flaw in the system as well, for sure. Yeah.
You comment on chlorine?
On what?
Chlorine. Salt.
Oh, chlorides. Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's like we put chlorine in the lake. I don't know the extent to it. I mean, there are people who put chloride products down to tamp down dirt roads and stuff like that. Is that what you're talking about? Or
M53.
For melting. Yeah, so generally, it's not ideal for the lake. Actually, there is very, very new, non-conclusive studies that do link chloride with increased cyanobacteria indirectly. Not that it's causing it, but that it's creating an environment that would make it easier to grow. I haven't seen enough of that. It's not conclusive, but there might be some correlations there. Even without that, it's mostly that it's just not good for the local ecosystem, because our fish and our native wildlife in the lake are freshwater species. So if the saline level of the lake increases, these people suffer, and you'll notice that when you're fishing, and if there's less fish, less eagles come around. So definitely more of a direct ecosystem threat. It's not necessarily a human health threat, but definitely ecologically not good. And there is that potential to help, aiding in cyanobacteria growth indirectly. So definitely, and it's a thorny problem because the DOT towns tend to prioritize direct safety in the winter over lake ecology. It's always been a thing, probably correctly so, but there are a lot of best management practices for salt application. So one solution to that could be, which I think the owners would probably have to approach this conversation with the town. The state has a certification, they call it Green Snow Pro. And basically it's like you can get certified by the state to implement best management practices for salt application. And you can be legally protected by the state if you're putting those practices in against lawsuits. So if you're putting down less salt, or you're making sure salt just right before a storm, or using the brine instead of pellets, things like that that are less impact on the lake. A lot of applicators will say, well, that's great, but I'm going to get sued if someone slips off the road. So they created a certification that has legal protections baked into it to protect people who apply salt, including municipalities, from the legal risks of doing reduced salt application.
To that point, John, so we moved up here full-time a year and a half ago. And prior to that, I wouldn't have really known or seen what a lot of towns do along, especially behind.
In the winter.
But yeah, so I'm on Reddit, as are a couple of guys up here, and we know our road in particular is a private road and we pay for it to be plowed and everything. But we do not salt, we sand occasionally when we have to. But Bonnyman Road, especially from Wakefield, near the Eppington line, all the way to 153, at first I was like, it was very slushy and everything else, and they put salt down in that section. Now, on your map, that's a very large percentage of the problem in that area.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything with 153 necessarily, or maybe you could, but I think the town of Wakefield in that section, I mean, there's huge runoff along
Yes.
most of that entire section.
Yes.
And I wish that they would put salt down in that Wakefield portion.
Mhm.
I know Eppington doesn't,
They
at
don't do
all,
Yeah.
where we are anyways.
Yeah, it may be, it's a conversation, and it may be that they don't stop putting salt down, but the compromise would be
Yes,
if they can do those best practices under roads to reduce the amount going in. The other solution, obviously, is if we address that area so the water's not getting into the lake, and just staying on the road or infiltrating, then the salt gets bound up in soil. Also not great for soil, but better than perhaps getting into the lake. So that's a good point to bring up.
I mean, private homeowners, you can reach.
Yeah.
But I think the town,
Those are the,
maybe that would be an easier task for them.
it's not like low hanging fruit, but it is like that's like right there, something we can all do immediately, whether or not private homeowners get involved. We can talk to the town and start those discussions. Yeah, absolutely. Cool, great conversation. Any other thoughts or comments about this? I am going to I'll leave the copy of the watershed report there if anyone wants to glance through it while they're here. I also brought the 2024 water quality data, but I just learned that the 2025 data came out yesterday, so that's a little outdated now. And I have a lot of pamphlets and information that you guys should please take on your way out for more information about what we're doing.
And here, over the past 10 or 12 years, we found out that Providence Lake acts similarly to many other lakes in the area, and we're not unique. When we get a bloom, a lot of times other lakes around get blooms. What's been happening in New Hampshire in this area this year? Because we have had no blooms.
It is a similar trend statewide. Yeah.
So that's interesting. It might not just be us, it might be geographical.
Yeah, to a degree. Some lakes are still having, like lakes that are in worse shape are still having some blooms, but yeah, statewide there has been a slight reduction this year. Part of that is always dependent on rain. We had a couple big storms last week. Before that, there really wasn't a lot of rain this summer. And the big rain events, especially heavy ones, are what flush everything into the watershed, into the lake. You can have the worst, you can have bare soils everywhere. If it rains, nothing's going to get washed in.
Yeah, John, but to that end, last summer we were in a major drought. And yet we had substantial bloom.
We were in a drought, that's true, but we still had those large, fast, unproductive rain events that wash everything, isolated incidents that doesn't get us out of the drought, but can still cause the flushes to happen. So it's a little, bit of minutia, but yeah, you know, because you can carry drought conditions for many years if you're not getting enough quantity of rain. But you can still within those droughts have like very intense rains that don't actually like stay in the soil and soak things up. They just run right in and drag stuff in. So yeah, it's a combination of environmental impacts and like luck or bad luck and the work that we're doing here. Obviously, we can only control the work we can do on the ground. We can't change the weather. So I tend to focus more on the impact we can have as a community and just insulate us against whatever drought or rain conditions are going to come, because we're not fighting that at all. We're a little too small to affect the climate, but we can affect the resilience that the lake has to deal with the climate and the development that happens around it. Cool. So just to move on really quickly, I'm probably coming close to the time you guys wanted me to speak for. Actually, we're doing okay. Ryan wanted me to talk about the septic survey very briefly. This is a separate thing. It's something that we used to do as part of grants. It's all it is we send a like 10-question survey out to the community about your septic system, and we ask people to give, self-report on the state of their septic system. Again, it's not enforcement, it's just a way for us to document the state of septic systems. But it's self-reported. It's not a process where we're acquiring data from town or the state to do a full septic survey like we might have done a shoreline survey. What we do is just a self-reporting survey. You can work with groups like FB Environmental to do those more in-depth septic analyses. But we tend to find that self-reporting and doing the survey is more of an outreach tool for folks to think about their septic system, sometimes for the first time in their lives. And through these grants, we often get septic system cost share programs. So we can, if someone's septic system is polluting the lake, we can put $5,000 towards helping them replace it. So it tends to be more of an educational tool to collect some data and get folks to think about this system. We've actually helped 12 homeowners replace septic systems on Providence Lake since we started doing this work with those $5,000 grants. So we used 4,600 and we upped to 5,000 that's inflation. So I did provide the survey to you guys a few weeks ago. I would encourage you to send it out digitally and by mail, and the data will come back to me, and I can process all the data for you guys and share it with you in graph form and spreadsheets form. But I'm happy to talk to you guys more about that. But I want to kind of just make clear that it's a little bit less of like a data-heavy tool like the watershed survey. It's more of an outreach tool. And were there any questions about that or any follow-up? Do you want me to talk about the birds? Sure. You can talk about the birds real quick. Ryan, sorry, I know we're getting close. Ryan also brought up to me the question of like feeding birds. So I just want to mention quickly that bird feeding itself is not, it doesn't have a huge water quality impact on the lake at large, but it can have an effect on localized water quality. So if you're attracting birds to your property, even when they're pooping there, so you're going to have additional fecal coliforms and bacteria and parasites in the area. So we definitely discourage folks from feeding birds on the lake, if only because you've all probably heard of duck itch, what people call it. It's like that's literally a parasite from bird species that gets on your skin and makes you irritated. So that's not fun. It's already in the lake in some levels, but if you have all the birds coming to your house, it would be worse. It also makes the birds more dependent on humans, which means when those humans go away, the bird populations can suffer. So it's our general advice to not feed birds, just helping set the record on that. But that's about it.
Thank you so much. That's all. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Going to continue this discussion about the erosion prevention.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, I'm John Sanderson. As John kind of went into my discussion, I kind of took the lead on applying for a grant to the state of New Hampshire's one-time thing for side animal. They call them shovel-ready projects. We felt that the beach was an area we could address fairly quickly. So at last year's meeting, I reported that we've been approved for funding, but at that time we hadn't chosen a date or anything else. We were going to do 600 feet, as John said, plant 240 plants, spread about 80 yards of mulch, by building this buffer along guardrail in New Hampshire. We decided to do half of the project last year again. We were kind of scratching our head wondering how much of this can we get done in 1 year. So we decided we'd do half, we'd do 300 feet. We chose the day of August 12th, and Ours generously offered their YCC crew for a day. We had, that last year we had 17 volunteers, including 5 of the YCC crew. We had 300 feet, and we were done at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which was pretty impressive. We thought we might go into 2 days, and we got it all done. That was phase 1. Phase 2 was going to be this year. We figured we'd start a little earlier. We actually got on our schedule with it being their very first project for the crew this year. So we did the other 300 feet in, what was it, June 3rd, yeah. So last day, basically the last day of June. We were even more efficient and done at 11 o'clock in the morning. So we spread out, we planted all the plants, spread all the mulch, everything was done. Seems to be pretty successful. Phase 1, if you go along the beach and take a look, we actually only lost 1 plant. And we actually replaced it with this year's planting. We just took one sweet ferns and put it away. We're in the maintenance phase right now. We started out with maintenance. We water the plants every day for 2 weeks. Volunteers have signed up to go out there and have buckets of water on. It takes about an hour to do it. With 1 person, usually there's 2 of you, we're done in about a half hour. It's nice that there's a whole thing full of water. We can just walk in, get out, and get it on. So we did 2 weeks of every day. We're into the every other day time period, which ends on Monday. Will be the last one of that, and then we do it every 3rd day for 5 weeks. And then after that, we just kind of see what the weather is doing. We maybe do a watering here and there, but it seems like after doing what we did last year, the plants have taken and worked out pretty good. So it's really good. I personally want to take credit for no so now. I know I can't, but
Hey, John, having gone here this morning in the section we did last year, there's actually 1 or 2, and I don't know why these 2 plants have completely lost all the leaves. They're about this tall, and they're red, and they look, to me, they look dead. I don't know whether they are, but they're last year's plants, so that's,
could be because it's been so dry.
yeah, so I'm not sure, maybe we should check those out.
I just want to say something with John Bellman, please.
Oh, yeah.
That the program you have for the young people who work there is wonderful. We happen to know one of the young men, and this was such a good way for him to spend the summer. So kudos to you providing that program for young people.
That was the very first program. That's what started off. It was just the YCC 21 years ago. So far predates me. It's a fantastic program.
Thank you.
It's incredible how many of these kids that go into that program, because I was on the out for many years. It's incredible how many of these kids that get involved and then all of a sudden say, you know what, I'm going to get my degree and go into environmental sciences. It's quite a few that actually do that. So, look at that. And then, good lead in, thank you, Don. I do want to thank John and Awa for volunteering their crew 1 day each year. Without them, I think we probably still be planting. But I do also want to thank, we had 20 volunteers this year, 17 the first year, and that includes the Owl group. But I do want to thank all the volunteers that came out to help us do planting as well, especially Jeff. My eyes are Jeff has an auger, a power auger, but he drilled holes, and kids came along and planted behind him. So it sped up the job quite a bit. I had my tractor with it, so I pictures to help move the mulch at least across the road and over the guardrail. That's the only problem with the guardrail is it's hard to maneuver around the field house. So at least that saved a little bit of effort too for people. So I do want to thank John and Ala and all the volunteers that came out and the board, because a lot of the board is part of that activity as well for the new business.
How did you get all the material delivered? Is that kind of little parking lot by B-Tree?
So yeah, that's now all that stuff happens like the day before. The topsoil that we put into the holes I have delivered to my house. Because I bought it at Lowe's in bags that we use to move the dirt around, the wheelbarrows. And I'm a Rose Pro member, so I got a discount. It's only $20 to deliver it. And then we load it on our trucks, and the morning of that we're going to do the planting, Larry and I have bags of dirt on our trucks, and we drive along and set the bags along the dirt bed. The day before, all the plants get delivered to Larry's house. We load them into his trailer as well as his garage. And then in the morning, we're a little bit early before the crew even shows up and lay the plants along the beach area so that they're ready to go into the holes. The mulch gets delivered, we get a couple loads the day before. And then as the day progresses, we actually have to dump it right on the edge of 153 because the parking area along that guardrail is large enough that we can dump a load right there. It's a little closer to the guardrail, so they were delivering them as we were moving it at the same time. So it takes a little bit of coordination. First year was a trial, worked very smoothly. This year, we're obviously been working smoothly, so it's worked out very well. So it's a good project, and like John said, it's a huge project. It's one of the good extent. Most of that because it's 600 feet of buffer that we installed. Everybody at one time around the lake should be thinking about putting in a vegetative buffer at the lake because it's eroding coming in. So that's all I have on that. Any other questions?
You said you're going to, every third day, we need more volunteers?
There are still some times available if somebody's interested. I can send that link out again. I did send it out to not only our membership, we're talking about people joining the association. We have about 500 names on our database that's in my computer. Most of them we have email addresses for, and then our email blasts, and plus our Facebook posts get lots and lots of people. And I'm going to talk membership in a little while, but I can send that back out. I did send it out quite a while ago because there are still some more spots. We're pretty well covered for the very front end. We go to the every Thursday, but towards the tail end, it's a little bit sparse.
Is there any update on guide rails for me?
No. We'd love to have them there. The state of Maine wasn't willing to do it. When we first met with them many years ago, we actually had the Hampshire DOT, and we had Maine DOT, and PLA, and ANWA, and we all met at the state line, and we were all talking about it. The state of Maine considers it an FDO, fixed deadly object. So they don't want these posts that people can run into with their cars and kill themselves because they don't have a problem if the car goes off and wipes out a family that's sitting on the beach. But we haven't been able to get movement on that at all. We do want to try to do something from a planting standpoint along there because it is a major issue, as John talked, and many people that walked that section during the survey saw that there's a lot of runoff that happens there. So we would like to do at least planting along there. It'd be nice to, like I said, I'd love to get the guardrails so people pop up the other side. I just don't see it happening. The sad thing was back when we were dealing with Maine DOT, New Hampshire DES was willing to spend money to get the grant. So they used New Hampshire money to do it. They didn't do it. So.
What about the town level? Maybe not the state level, but.
Parsonsfield, I don't, it's a state road, I don't know Parsonsfield will do it.
I don't know, there was some discussion recently on Facebook, somebody was talking about Parsonsfield, I think it was, and they were surprised that their take on their feeling for that section, that it wasn't them or it wasn't.
Other questions? Okay, we're gonna switch. Oh, sorry.
Last year's meeting, you mentioned that they had an RFP out for, the engineering company to look at the inlets.
Yeah.
What's happened to that?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so we actually tacked on to this first project I did, because the state still had some money, a $50,000 project to try to get some engineering designs to address our inlets. Because one of those really horrendous rains that we had, I think last spring, 5 inches in a few miles, the soil coming out of the culverts along 153 was incredible. I mean, I took a picture of it, I got a video of it. The soil balloon that went out into the lake, probably 200 yards, 300 yards, as you can see from the So we're going to get together an RFP. Unfortunately, no companies put in to do the job. So it kind of dropped. Probably need to rewrite it. I don't know if that money's still available. They may have moved it, DES might have moved it to some other project. I'm buried in the stuff I do, so I'm not going to take lead on it. So one of our other board members or anybody else that's going to join the board wants to take on lead on that, try to get something moving on it. I'm more than happy to help along it. If you don't want it, but I personally am not going to push it further, but so it just kind of died. It's working. Other questions? All right, one quick change to the agenda, if you don't mind, because I'm supposed to talk about membership, which I'll do in a minute, but since we're talking water quality and helping water quality, we thought we'd bring in our water quality monitoring person to talk about that. And that's my daughter, Katie Jones.
Thank you.
She's behind the post, I can't see her. So I'll turn it over to Katie and let her talk. It's dangerous to be a mic because I usually start saying.
Statement, you know about it. But yeah, I'm Phoebe, those who don't know me. I live in Ossipee, but I grew up on the lake, love the lake, and so I'm really happy to be able to help with the water quality coordinating. And so what we do, for those who aren't familiar, is we collaborate with the University of New Hampshire. We collect water samples about 5 times throughout the summer, once a month, and that all gets baked into an annual report. And these reports go back a number of years, which is really great because it can help us see how things are trending over time. We collect data like water clarity and total phosphorus and chlorophyll. And so all of this data is available. UNH has a really cool new interactive system. You can slice and dice the data in different ways. You can go there, and the Province Lake Association also posts these reports on their website. We actually just got the last summer 2025 report the other day, and so this was going on the website. And you have the initial report. Unfortunately, everything's trending in the wrong direction. I know Santa was really bad last year, but our water clarity and chlorophyll are now, we've even entered a new category of being considered eutrophic. So our total phosphorus was eutrophic for a while. And so, but anyways, unfortunately, those numbers are worse. It was a bad year last year. Hopefully this year will be better. We've taken, I forget how many, we've done 3 maybe samples so far this year. It's categorized, again, experts could talk more, but it's more vegetation, fish, small feed. This is my understanding, somebody else might know. Higher open conditions rather than super clear water level. And so, yeah, unfortunately things are going towards that more certain conditions, which more cyano too. And the total phosphorus contributes to the cyano as well. And so, yeah, I guess a big shout out to and thank you for all who volunteered to drive their boats. I sent out an email in the spring, so if that's something you're interested in doing, please feel free to respond. We've had a huge turnout, so we actually have more volunteers than we had sampling days, which is great, but it's really nice also to have a backup in case there's some cancellations. So thank you for everyone who volunteered. And I'll leave this report by the front door too, if anybody wants to take a look at it as well. Any questions? You get that?
So are you thinking that we're not out of the wood yet?
Yeah, I mean, all I do is collect the data, but yeah, just as John was mentioning, right, it takes a while, and yeah, last year was certainly not a good year, what the numbers.
Can you give us a comparison between last year and this year? I know
John, did you sample during the bloom last year? Was that part of the timeline? Does that contribute to your report from last year?
We do not, we set the dates ahead of time, so it's not like there's a bloom, let's sample now. DES does come and collect the cyano samples, more at the shore looking for how toxic it is. What we do is more just kind of consistent sampling, and then it bakes into an average, right? And so if we did have a bloom, it could very much skew that average because that's going to be a high number class. This year, surprisingly, the individual data points, last year, the 2025, they're pretty consistent. So it wasn't like there was one huge bloom that was sampled, and I don't recall sampling in a really, really bad bloom last year either. I don't look back at the dates, but they were all kind of over the board throughout the summer. Higher, of course, conditions. So yeah, I guess, Jen, to your point, our water clarity, so this is the Secchi measurement, so how deep you can see into the lake. In 2024, we're able to see down, the average was 2.9 meters, last year was 2.4 meters. Chlorophyll, 2024 was 4.8 parts per billion, and last summer was 7.4. So that was a big jump. And then our total phosphorus in 2024 was 17.5 parts per billion, and 2025 last summer was 19.3.
What is chlorophyll?
It's like the blue-green content, I guess, in the water. Again, somebody else feel free to chime in or correct me if I'm wrong here, but so like cyanobacteria would certainly contribute to higher chlorophyll levels, but same with other naturally occurring things in the lake.
Yeah, my understanding of eutrophic means that we've progressed into a period where things are easier to grow in the lake. There's a combination of nutrients and other factors that make plant material and other things just easier to grow, which is not what we want to do because we don't want cyanobacteria.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, my turn again. The membership. So for the year ended 2025, we had 164 members. And as I said, our email distribution plus people, the followers we have on Facebook, we're requesting people to join the association for a whopping $25. We probably have 400 or 500 people on the list. And we're lucky if we get 160, 150, that's what it says. It's the same thing now. Our emails are hundreds and hundreds of letters, and it's mind-blowing. But as soon as you have a bloom, everybody wants to sit back and play Monday morning quarterback and throw stones and say, "What are you doing? Why don't you join the association and help?" Okay. So yeah, last year was 2025. Actually, we had 4 more than 2024. Of the 164 we had, 15 were new members to the organization. So the fact that we added 4, we had 15 new means we lost a life. From the total membership, we received $12,955 in donations, so it's a big chunk of our funding that we get. Of the 164 members, 69% gave more than just the basic membership, and 39% gave 100 or more, and those are the ones we refer to as our heroes. These percentages are pretty typical every year. As of yesterday, for this year, we have a total of 120 members. This compares to about 147 as of the annual meeting last year, so we're a little bit behind on that. We did try something different this year. I think most of you are aware. Last year, and most years, we do a mailing to these 500 people or so, 400, 500 mailing letters. Costs about $1,300 to do that. I looked at the results. Of the 160-ish people that we get every year, about 85 to 90% join every year. So although those 400 mailings we do, very few do we do anything of. So we decided to try something different, just do an email distribution and a Facebook post. Problem with that is people don't have a piece of paper sitting on their desk that we come across and say, "Oh, yeah, we need to go." So I think that's part of it. I'm going to reach out individually to people that have joined in the past. last year, we haven't yet. To see if I can gin up a few more and get us back up to the 160 range, but again, we're at 120, we had 147 at the meeting last year. Of the 120 thus far, 6 are new. We received about $9,500. That doesn't count some money I just got today to the donations. Of the 120 members, 73% gave more than the basic membership, and 43% gave 100 or more. I've also, just today, we got another 8 members, so that gets us up to about 128. So that's a good thing. There are a couple of people that have signed up on the form, said they mailed a check, but I haven't checked yet, so I don't count that. If they don't pay, they don't become a member of that. So that's kind of where we are on membership. It blows my mind how few people actually join for a $25 fee. It's been this way for it's just it's not like John says, we don't know why, but it is what it is. Any other questions on?
It does sound like you're over 25%. If you think about setting up 500 and you have 100. So you're doing better than Mason.
Not by much. Not a lot. You know, I would have thought we'd be 75, 80% of people would join. Because like I said, as soon as we have a bloom or something else bad going on in the lake, you get lots of responses. And what's incredible is because you know who's responding, especially on Facebook, is that you look them up, they're not members. But they'll sit there and yell and scream. Other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Jen. Next up, we're going to hear from our local post program coordinator, PLA.
I don't think I'm doing you all can hear me, right? Your voice can hear. So this year we're doing pretty well. We've seen 372 votes as of this morning. We've had a little bit of struggle at times with our scheduling due to other kinds of situations in personal lives, but we've had everybody covering all the shifts. Jim was kind enough to step up and help fill out the shift too for us this year as a volunteer, which we greatly appreciate. We do have 5 lake hosts. Sarah is one of them, myself, and 3 others, and we have 1 floater that works at another lake that will fill in if we need some filling in the schedule. We've noticed that we've had, out of those 372 votes, 80% of them are just going into Providence Lake, coming in and going up, coming in and going up. So that's a really good thing for us. I personally have met several people that either have new boats, were not aware of the program, and are doing a great job when they come out. They're pulling their plugs, because the state law informs you that you must clean, drain, and dry your vessel every time you come in and out of the body of water. They're pulling their plugs, they're looking for those leads or anything. Everything that we have pictured, if we've taken something off, it's part of our survey that we sent to the state. Nothing has been invasive, everything has come back perfectly clear. So we're in pretty good shape. Our numbers are up from last year, and I'm sure it's due to the fact that the water quality is a lot better this year. So, does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so important. There's been a number of updates from New Hampshire Lakes this year about places in the state where the program's worked and it's prevented weeds not only from coming into lakes, but also leaving lakes, 10 milfoil and that sort of thing, and we're able to, identify the weed leaving the lake and prevented it from going somewhere else. So it really does work. So next up, we're going to hear from our Lumen Ranger, Donna Luce.
This is not an April Fool's joke. On April 1st, the male loon arrived on Providence Lake. And then 3 days later, the female arrived. That was also the day that they said it was ice out. So that was pretty cool. Now, you probably remember last year was the first time there was ever 2 nestings on Providence Lake. Hobbsbrook area and then on the island. So that was pretty exciting. And this year started off a little exciting. The balloon raft was put out on April 17th. I don't know if I should say this, but on June 7th, John Samuelson saw a pair mating. But yes, I believe it. I love it when people let me know things because otherwise I can't be all eyes on the lake. Now, Tom Townsend went away right around the time that they were supposed to hatch. So Linda McKelvey kept an eye on the nest, which, by the way, the wind blew away. I don't know, is this even working? Yeah. Because I did it the wrong place. Anyway, so the wind blew the raft pretty close to the shore, but the loons stayed on the nest. They took turns. But on June 16th, Linda McKelvey called me and said, Donna, there are no loons on the nest. So we went over, we had seen the loons further away, and, thought, oh, well, let's go check the nest. Well, all we could see were little pieces of eggshells. And thought, oh, something got the egg, because it was just one egg. So we started to go away, and all of a sudden I looked over, and there was a chick between the loons. So we did have one hatching. And we named him Remy, after Remick Road. And he was pretty cute. People were seeing him riding on their parents' back. On June 24th was the last sighting. And then we found out, I think it was the next day, that people saw an eagle take it. Eagles were attacking them. So then we knew there was a nest on the island. We had put signs out. But we noticed right around the time, around June 24th, that we had been seeing the pair of loons leave the island for a long period of time. And they don't usually do that. Usually one is always on the nest. So we took Marcus, the biologist from the Loon Preservation Committee, we took him out, and it's interesting, the pair were further away from the island, but as soon as our boat got close to the island, those loons came right over. But he was able to quickly run on the island and put an X on the egg. And so we took Marcus back a week later, and they had not been turning the egg. The X was still showing. So that lake was not viable. Marcus took it, and they will examine it. We'll probably hear sometime next year what they found out about that. So, it was a little discouraging. My job has gotten a little easier, but I wish it were more difficult. Last year was wonderful. What we saw with those juveniles right up until November was wonderful. On July 18th, 4 boats met at 8 o'clock, well, a little before 8 o'clock, and we participated in the Loon Preservation Committee loon census. And we saw 7 loons. I should tell you who was there because I don't want to forget anybody. Tom Townsend with his friend Glenn, Cheryl and Gary Morris with Jim and Laura, and then David and I. So it was a pretty quiet lake, wouldn't you say? Only seeing 4, but for the whole state, and not every lake has people doing this. There were 440 volunteers at 100 different lakes. They counted 516 adult loons, 74 chicks, and 2 immature loons, which means they were between 1 and 2 years old. So, that's pretty good. That was, a pretty good count. Yes?
Any idea, after the DBT thing, and there was all the, the food made much improvements over the last 20 years or something?
Yeah, I don't know. You mean
for those things, I guess it used to be rare, so now we can see.
Right, we've been coming up for years, and I don't remember seeing the loons that much.
Yeah.
And, and then to have 2 nests for 2 years, that is wonderful. And then on July 31st, we went out on the lake to see the sunset, and there were 9 loons in front of the sunset. So, and some people have seen 10. So, you know, it's been 7. Yeah, it's amazing, and it's not unusual because they visit the lakes, when we go out in the day, we don't see many, there's something about the cocktail hour.
Party time.
So anyway, now, last year, and it's very normal, the male will leave first, the female will leave later, like September, October. But the juveniles, because we had 3 last year, they stayed until November. And then they take off to the ocean. And they do not come back to the lake for a few years, probably not to this lake either. They find another lake, but they need to grow in order to be able to breathe. So they don't come back. So yeah, it's wonderful. We still hear them day and night. So we're blessed to have balloons on our lake. Anybody have any questions that I can answer?
About the water control plants.
Yeah, I'm just gonna kind of introduce, Tucker's first. I wanna, Tucker's not here, I want to thank Tucker Nye, I wish he was here. Tucker stepped in to take over being the dam master for the past couple of years when Mark Hinton and Lori Dunn sold their place and moved, as Mark was doing it for quite a few years, and Tucker stepped up to do it again. He had been the dam master for many years prior to that. He was also a board member on the board for several years too, so we do appreciate what Tucker had done for the PLA, working as a dam master. And the other thing I wanted to do was introduce our new dam master, Michael Lee, who's over here. He's the one that bought the house, so it kind of makes sense since the dam's right there. And we're very thankful that Michael volunteered to take over as dam master. Mike, you want to say anything?
I'm not a public speaker, but I'm pleased to do something for the lake. Like you said, bought Mark and Lori's place about 2 years ago and wanted something to do, and so when the dam master's job came up, I said, that sounds perfect. Right close so I can walk down and measure it, and I can report there is water going over the dam this morning.
Barely.
Yeah, barely, but the rains did help because it wasn't flowing at all. So it's nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. This might be a touchy subject, but I'm going to introduce myself first. I'm Tasha Krause. My parents, Parsonsfield, they used to be members of the association. My grandparents bought their plot that I currently reside in back in 1951. So that's an experience with the lake. I'm now able to enjoy it full time. I am a veterinarian, and my big question is, why are we not using real engineers, dam engineers, i.e. beavers? They're keystone. I know this is a contentious issue. They are keystone species. So I'd like you all to look up beaver bomb. I want you to look up beaver in the United Kingdom, because they've actually placed beavers in places that have become decimated. It used to be beautiful water, wetlands. And they actually slow flooding. They do a lot of conservation. They are the best engineers we can do for this lake. They eat a lot of lilies. I know, like I said, I know it's contentious. They've been trapping beavers since early 70s off this lake. I think that's been a mistake in terms of the health of this lake and the waterlands around it. So just kind of wanted to put that out. I appreciate you monitoring the dam. It needs to be monitored. And there are things we can do with the beavers to help them out as well. And it doesn't cost us anything. They live here.
So the dam was put in years ago because when Effingham changed the culvert out, they put it too low. And it almost drained the lake way too far down. So we needed to do something just to try to keep the level up in the summertime months. When we dry spells like hell. And right now, like I was saying, it's basically exactly at the level that DPS recommends the lake to be at. So it's at basically the perfect level right now as we speak. Yeah, the beaver are great dam makers. They definitely are still building. They still build downstream. That's why where Salt River goes out, it's a giant marsh. And it always will be, because even though there is some trapping that goes on, they still build further down. And those don't get trapped out, and that stays in the marsh, and it probably will be forever. Like John said, also Hawks Brook coming in, that's always usually got a dam on it. We haven't do anything with beaver there. And that's a super big marsh. That's an awesome marsh to have, because again, it helps filter the water that's coming into the lake through Hawks Brook. Same thing with the marsh on Salt River. I don't know if there's any beaver building there, but it's a big marsh there too, which is nice. I mean, we do have some nice marshes that feed into the lake, which help with absorb the phosphorus, etc. But yeah, we try to keep the river flowing, the South River flowing, and try to keep the level at where DES wants it to be. And part of that does involve trying to clear out some of the beaver dams.
Have we ever trapped beaver?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Well, that's where you can actually put PVC piping through the dam,
Right.
so you always have flow.
Right.
So there's a lot of options out there.
Well, so the beaver never have dammed up, totally dammed up the culvert, ever. They put some skips there, but they never have. It's usually always down. They actually build the dams. It's usually not right at the culvert, because that's part of
I
it. So
just
much,
remember
as far as so much traffic and stuff,
as a kid, and the lake was a lot healthier back then. I know a lot of things have changed, places have been built up. You know, you've got a lot more pieces to the puzzle than what we did back in the 70s, that kind of thing. But maybe reintroducing a few more strategically might not be a bad idea. I am willing to offer my services. I do exotics and southern wildlife anyway as a veterinarian. I'm also a scuba diver, so I can even monitor things as much as my job allows me to, but I'd be willing to just help out with any kind of wildlife issues around here, whatever it is.
Thank you.
Go for it. Well,
Anything else on the dam? Again, welcome, Michael. Thank you for volunteering. We appreciate it. It's great to have somebody take it over. We actually already learned how to put the boards in, because that was Tucker's last duty, was to show them make a lot of the boards in.
I am in touch with Tucker, and he's been helping me out, so.
Yeah, so Tucker's gone. He's definitely slowed down his time on the lake now. He and the boat, but he is still around, so he is a resource that might be challenged too as well. So.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Our next update is from Jim Aiken for the Pequot program.
Jim Aiken, the current coordinator for the Weed Watch program. Luckily, or fortunately, right now our lake is invasive species free as far as weeds go. But if weeds ever did take hold in this lake, it's very shallow. It would be devastating. And it wouldn't happen quickly. We would have to find them and have them removed. So we have split the lake up into 15 different sections, and we have people that will monitor it, each section, once a month, June, July, August, September. So it's like an hour commitment each month. It's a great way to volunteer, and then there's no real social interaction. There are no meetings. I ask that if you reach out to me once a month, just to say that the section's been covered. I'm not an expert on aquatic plants. If you see something that looks just out of place, you take a picture, you send it to Amy Smagula at the New Hampshire DES, and 100% of the time she comes back and says, Buzz did it the other day. Was curious about a plant, and that was perfect what you did. And Amy just sent back a couple days later, and it's fine. But I'm actively recruiting. I'd love to have 4 more weed watchers. We lose them through people leaving the lake. Sonia Gauthier has done it for many, many years. She just sold her house. So I would like more weed watchers than sections. There's a great video on YouTube that Amy did, not this spring, but last spring, about, and all you need to do is look at Parsonsfield Effingham Weed Watch Refresher on YouTube. And I think it's 37 minutes, but it goes through the process. It goes through what the proper way to do it. We have a PDF on parsonsfield.org, which goes through the process in PDF form. So there's all kinds of resources out there. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to cruise around an hour every month. And please, if you're interested, let me know. And even if you just want to talk more about it, happy to talk about it. And yeah, I'm looking for a few good people. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving up to the agenda, which is association business items, and John again.
You're gonna get tired of doing it. All right, so yeah, under the business, as you know, we typically every year have some officers and board members changing out. So we have to have a vote. As many emails have gone out about the fact that you need to be a member to vote, which I believe almost everybody that's in the 1 year is actually a member to vote on these. And we also sent out bios of the people that voted on. So we have some here might be who this person is. So there's that people have here. But before we get into the actual vote, I want to first thank some of the board members that are leaving the board. First is Mindy Schumann-Nye. Mindy stepped down from the board after many, many years. She's been on the board. She was a past president, vice president, willing to volunteer for almost anything that PLA was doing. It was a great asset to us. Most board members eventually get tired of doing it. It's time to move on. So she stepped down this year. Tucker had stepped down a couple years ago. His term expired, so Mindy is no longer a part of the board, but we do thank her for her contributions. Jim Aiken, again, has been on the board for quite a few years. Again, another vice president and then president of the association. He's stepping off the board, however, he's going to continue to do his coordination efforts for Weed Watch. Even though he's not on the board, but you don't have to be on the board to help us out. And I think he's also going to continue to kind of help coordinate the beach cleanups with oils and bags and all that kind of stuff. So thank Jim for his time and his commitment to the board, and the fact that he's going to continue doing his ongoing activities. So thank you, Jim. Finally, we have Dr. Dennis Badman. Dennis is stepping off the board as well, and he's been on the board for quite a few years. Did many things, including he was kind of a lead doing the watershed survey update and working with Iowa to get that accomplished last spring. So thank Dennis for his time and commitment to the board. Now to the officers and directors' positions to be voted on. So current boards come up with the following proposed people to be voted on. We vote on each one individually. Please remember that you must be a paid PLA member to vote. First, we'll do the officers. This year, we have a bit of an anomaly. It's nothing major. We've done this in the past, but the president, vice president, and treasurer positions all were supposed to expire. So Ryan was supposed to step down, I was supposed to step down, Tom was supposed to step down. But we haven't got individuals to take the spots yet. So we're going to vote on 3 of the positions for just a 1-year term. Because Lance agreed to stay on, and agreed to stay on, and with some bending of his arm, I think his back, Tom has agreed to stay as treasurer for another year while we sort out who we're going to take over these positions. So again, we've done this in the past. There's been several past presidents that stayed on for a further year. Typically, it's a 2-year term. Pete Dingle was one of them. Lori Dunn was another one. So it's been at least 2 times for the events in the past. It's not that unusual, but it is a little bit of an anomaly for this year. So with that, we'll start out with voting for President Ryan Little for a 1-year term. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? David Ryan? Next up is me, as Vice President and Coordinator of Membership. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, I guess I'm Vice President again. Next up, Tom as Treasurer. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Sorry, Tom. You always provided people that you didn't quite get it. Next up is our Secretary, Debbie Luna, over in the corner over here. Her term just expired after being on board as Secretary for 2 years. She's going to renew as Secretary for another 2 years. So all in favor of Debbie continuing as Secretary, say aye. Aye. Opposed? You're on again. Next is Carl Davis as a continuing board member for another 2-year term. Carl's been on the board a lot. He actually sucked me in. As his vice president, I joined the board as vice president back in 2010. I believe it was something around that. Quite a long time ago. But he and his wife Donna sucked me into being on the board, and Carl was the past president, vice president, et cetera, et cetera. He's been on the board a lot, done a lot for the league and a lot for the association, but he's willing to do another 2-year term, so all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, next up is a new member. This is one of those bios that was sent out is good. But we're looking to add Jeff Lighthouser, which I learned that his name just today. It's a strong eye on the second eye. Like I said, Jeff has been actively involved, especially with beach planting and watering. I think he's volunteered to water almost every single day. And help with the rest of the watering. So all in favor of Jeff, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. We have 4 other directors. Their terms aren't up until next year. There's no vote on this. I'm just going to let you know who they are. It's Myra Moody here, Marcia Fletcher down in the corner over there, Stacy in the far corner, Stacy Rule, and then Mary Saracino. Just seems to be those 3 lined up over there for whatever reason. Their terms expire next year, and they may stay on, and they decide not to. Maybe one of them will become a vice president or president. We'll see. But that's it for the actual vote of the people brought forward by the board. That makes 10 of us total. Our bylaws allow up to 14. As with every year, now's the time to see if there are any interested folks from the floor who would like to join the board. The only requirement primarily is that you're a paid member, obviously. Willing to attend a couple of meetings a year.
John, I'd like to nominate Megan Campbell. I'll less for her speech on it, but she's been fantastic this year helping out volunteering. I'm not going to take away any of your explanation of what brought you here.
That's awesome. We usually get to know why. We've had a couple of people that already volunteered 1 year. I think Marcia did too. I think that's the only time we've ever had actually people get volunteered from the floor. But Megan, if you're willing and you're being nominated by Meredith, anybody want to second that nomination? All right, and Mary, Megan, if you want to just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been coming to Sounds Lake all my life. My maternal grandparents started coming here in the late 1930s, bought the home at the end of Butlerfield Road, which many of you might know as the Wilkinson House, but it's the White House that sits up on the mountain. And I have been in love with Providence Lake my whole life, and my partner Bob and I recently retired this year and are planning on being up here for much of the summers and falls for the foreseeable future. And we both like to become involved with the Providence Lake Association and help out wherever we can. And so I'm hoping to be a part of this association.
Again, she's one of the ones that has been volunteering to do watering, hands-on, so we thank you for doing that too. So we're gonna make this official. All those in favor of making joining the board, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Awesome. Welcome to the board. So that will give us 11, which actually makes it an odd number. So if you have a vote on something at a board meeting, may not end up at a tie. We never do. Typically, most of the board is in the same direction. We might have one or two say, yeah, I don't know about that issue, but most of the time we're all kind of marching towards the same thing because we're all concerned about the way most goes on. So we never really had a problem where we have time on vote of anything, so we're having a lot number. It's pretty easy. Any other people want to volunteer?
You don't have to be nominated.
No, you don't have to be nominated. You can just throw them in up there. This is what we usually do. Okay, well, that's all I have. And I'll check that over the line.
Next item is approval of the 2025 annual meeting minutes. So I will determine it today. Oh.
So I'm asking for approval of the minutes from last year. All in favor? No, I have to ask for a motion. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from last year?
Motion.
Is it seconded?
So second.
Great, thank you. And one technical thing, if I can take this time, Tasha, could you just spell your name for me so I can make sure I have that right?
Last name, first name, both.
Oh, T-A-S-H-A.
T-A-S-H-A.
Yep.
Last name is K-R-A-U-S-E.
So
I'm still working full-time down in Manchester, but when I'm not working, I am at home.
Because I have you as a vet and a scuba diver.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it over to Tom for our financial report.
Thank you. And I do have a formal report which is required by the state that was going on file. I thought I would just do a quick summary of it, and then if you want to see more detail, let me know. For 2025, we began the year with $52,000 in assets, $41,000 in that's in CDs and paying checks, so we had $52,000. We brought in $26,000 during the year. About half of that comes from all of you in the way of new membership and donations, since you included that. So half of the 26 is from you. The other half of the 26,000 comes from the two towns that help support us, and from the state grant during last year. And then in addition, we for $1,500 in interest in the CDs. So along with the $26,000 we brought in, we spent $24,000. About 30 of that goes to the Lake Coast program, and then 20% goes to the beach erosion issues, plantings that we did, and then 15% the private trips that we have with organizations like Ottawa and the World Preservation Committee, and 15% in beaver population management, and 10% in insurance premiums. So that's what makes it the $24,000 spend. So we gained a couple of $1,000 this year compared to the 2025. I anticipate 2026 to be very similar to the last 3 or 4 years. We have a grant that boosts up our numbers, but it's kind of a pass-through. We spend the money, they give us the money back. So we currently have about $54,000.
Thank you, Tom. And related to that, we have the annual financial audit, so I'll pass that to Carl.
I can project. No problem. I can probably project better than that amplifier. So yes, as it was probably apparent, Tom is an incredibly gifted person at doing numbers. He does a great job. That for 2025, this is his financial report for this Province Lake Association. There probably aren't many associations like what we have that have this kind of detail taken care of. He does a great job. With that being said, we are legally bound, I believe, to do an audit every year. And Michelle Shank, who lives on Rennick, a place on Rennick Road on the lake, has done the audit in the last few years. Does a great job, has gone through the entire 2025 financial book, has agreed with Tom's beginning numbers, the ending numbers, and I think a testament to Tom and what he does is best put out by what Michelle calls his meticulous bookkeeping, and I think that's very true. So I'd like to just have a round of applause for Tom because he's done a great job. Could those get put in the handbook?
Yes.
Okay, so you have that. If you don't have that, it will be posted online.
Yeah.
The audit. It's already in? Okay. All right.
No, it isn't yet.
It isn't? Okay. So thank you. That's it?
Great, and the next agenda item is we're gonna have, Bill King from Toll Farm talk about the progress on the boat ramp.
Sure. I think I can object as well. In the interest of saving paper, I only did one for it, probably every 2 weeks. Yeah, these. You don't need to look at these right away. I'll explain it. But first of all, I got great empathy for the board members here. As like you, I'm president of the Toll Farm Association. My name is Bill Kane. Sandy Roach, who's co-chair of this project, had a family situation that she had to attend today. But I do have great empathy for you guys because, like the Hotel California, you can never leave. I got great empathy. And on the other day, their whole Luna mill, and I got stopped at the done deal by someone who said, I heard the ramp project was dead, money's gone, blah, blah, blah. That's what's going on at all. We have placed fundraising on hold, so we've do some research. Right now, in our bank account, we have $8,003.59 for the rent project. We've spent $2,500 and $10, and we paid that to Civil Works Engineering in Portsmouth. The man's name is Duncan Malloy. He's the head engineer there, and he's going to help us in what you see there on the fruits of his labor. There's a schematic of the lake area, the ramp project, and on the second page, what the ramp might look like for next. So, in what this 25, we haven't, this doesn't include all the $2,500. There's still money left in that period. And what Duncan's going to do is apply for permitting. As anybody knows who's worked with DES, permitting is very crucial and very time-consuming and meticulous. And he is going to take care of that. The good news about this, where we're going from here, I'm not quite sure, but this permitting process will be good for any project there for the next 10 years. So that's huge. So if a project didn't get done this year, I'm looking towards next year, didn't get done, that's permitted to still be active. So where are we right now? Like, I can trust Duncan to take these plans and project what it might cost to get the job done. And I'm hopeful that it's going to be very achievable. Because what we're going to do is probably plank. The top is a large, you can see them, a large plank will be right by the road. And we coordinate with the town of Wakefield and they'll mesh that in. It will be planks down to the water and then a little bit of the water. The problem with, especially New Hampshire DES, is that you can't really work in the water. They give you permission, they say you can work in the wet, but if this was made, they'd say just go ahead and just put it all the way in. So instead of building a cofferdam, which would cost a fortune, we can still work with what we've got. There's not a lot of erosion other than he calls it a scour hole. Anybody who's watched their boat knows that there's a hole, power loading, and that kind of thing. He thinks that this can be done very easily and relatively cheaply. If we get this done, and he can continue with, we'll put riprap in the water, after the concrete pilings. And, so he's going to, the next thing you're going to hear, and I'll be that we will find out how much it's going to cost. Can we do it next year, which I'm hoping to do? If it's $20,000, we've got 10, or close to 10. I think it's doable. And Sandy is going to work on a grant, which John is still represent a DES grant available right now for Washington. And as you know, the erosion on the boat ramp is continuing. This is going to mitigate that, so we hope to put that, because this is the ramp is going to get as a not a hot spot, a troubling spot for erosion. So this mitigates that. We're hoping to maybe get a grant. Sandy's going to work on that. She's also been in touch with Craig Day of DES, and he's got another grant. He thinks might be appropriate for this. So that's what we're working on right now. And so as soon as we know what the cost is, can we make it? You know, I think we probably can, but we'll just have to see. So bear with us, and you know, again, congratulations. We watch you guys and thank you. You're down there every day and doing a great job. So,
Do you need any help with that?
yeah, what I'd like to do is ask Brian if I could get a liaison for our committee. We have 5 people from TFCC on this boat grant committee. I'd like a liaison from someone from the board.
I can help out with that. I live here full time now, so.
Okay, can you get me? Yeah, okay, get me, yeah, I'd love to have you. The next meeting we'll have is when we find out from, I'm gonna meet with him next, he's down in, he's in Dover actually. So I'm gonna meet with him next Thursday. And we're gonna go over those plans and what this actually, what's everything means. Okay, great. Any questions? It's been a long meeting. That's where we are. Yeah, thank you.
The end of our regular agenda. We're going to open it up for some Q&A if anybody has any additional questions or anything that's spoken. Sounds good.
It's not a question. I forgot to say that at 1 o'clock today, Marcus will be here. We're taking him out on the lake, and he's gonna try to see what rooms we have and repair vans. Because they banned them, and he wants to see if we've got any, I mean, the ones that are still around were probably abandoned, so that's the next step.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, I will close the meeting. Thank you again, everybody, for coming. Everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend and the rest of your summer. And let's continue to hope for no sign of extra. That would be great.